Hi there, Steve Coffin here, Steve's Cafe. This is where I get to rant. And I've done a few videos knocking Donald Trump, which isn't very difficult to do. The most recent thing with Donald is his wife getting all upset because a newspaper reporter didn't quite describe her the way she would have wanted to be described. My experience with the press is every time I give an interview, they get everything wrong. I consider that normal. But nevertheless, we need them, even though they have their axes to grind and they aren't always all that accurate. It's a part of our society, so Donald and his wife should just get over it. But that's not what I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to talk about, because people ask me to talk about Canadian politics. What do I think? So let's start with our Prime Minister. I am not at all impressed. I think he's a phony. I think he knows very little. And I think he's full of the sort of all of the moral rectitude and political correctness that gave rise to people like Donald Trump. And because he thinks he's on the moral high ground, he thinks he can do whatever he wants. Where do I start? He loves taking pictures of himself with various national dress on. So he had a picture taken of himself with the embroidered Ukrainian shirt, which is fine. But actually, the Ukrainians would like the government to take a stronger position vis-a-vis Russia, which Harper did. And the present duo of Dion and Trudeau live in this world of as long as we say nice things and we're polite and that'll be good. But actually, that's not quite how it is in real life. In real life, there are real issues and sometimes you have to take a stand. And I don't see Trudeau taking any stand on a real issue. On the other hand, apologizing for the fact that 100 some odd years ago, a boatload of people from India weren't allowed in the country, that he's front and center. That's a real progressive thing to do. I don't see any apology. I haven't seen an apology for a boatload of Jews that were denied access to Canada and went back to their death in Hitler's concentration camps. However, the Sikhs is a different matter. There's 3 Sikhs in the cabinet. Those are important voters. So we have an apology for that. He also apologized for his absolutely appalling behavior in the Canadian Parliament, where, as I gather, from what I've seen, there was some milling around and people weren't at their seats, and the Liberal Party wanted to get a vote going, and Trudeau charges over and grabs an opposition member by the arm to try to pull him to sit down in his seat, and in so doing elbows a female member in the chest. I think he did it twice. I don't spend a lot of time studying these things, but who does he think he is? I mean, that's just unbelievable. So today he has an apology. Well, my behavior was not what I expect of myself. Well, actually, it is exactly what I expect of Trudeau. He thinks that he has some divine right as a son of Pierre to go down there and grab another human being who happens to be a member of the opposition party and drag him and have him sit down where Trudeau wants him to sit down. Well, Trudeau is not a teacher and that's not his pupil. And whether or not in the scuffle he elbowed someone else in the chest, that's almost irrelevant. It's the mindset of someone who would think that in our parliament, if things aren't going his way, that he can just get up there and grab somebody by the elbow. And that whole, we are on the moral side of things, so whatever we do is good, is very much Trudeau, his apology notwithstanding. His apology doesn't amount to a hill of beans, in my opinion. And then I get a letter from his wife. I don't want a letter from his wife. I didn't vote for his wife. I didn't vote for Trudeau either. But although Sophie likes to get all the perks that go with being the wife of the Prime Minister, I don't want to hear from her. And so I get this letter saying, we want to find out more about you because for the last 3 years we've been meeting in coffee shops and town halls and church basements and gurdwaras, which I presume is Sikh temple. I mean, I don't need that detail. We met period. Whether in church temples, not in church temples, or church basements and gurdwaras, it's just meaningless. But it's all this sort of sick stuff. And then, you know, we want to get to know you. So, and the questions are like, you know, do you, I'm trying to open it up here. Do you think, you know, help us to get to know you better? How important is the following to you? Economy, middle class, and employment. Very important, somewhat important, not very important, not important. Who's going to say not important? Economy is important. Question is, what are you going to do about it, Trudeau? Unfortunately, so far, it doesn't look like you're going to improve our economy. The next was fair, open, and transparent government. Is that important? Not important? I feel like saying not important. Economy, not important. The environment, not important. Nothing's important. Infrastructure and communities, not important. Healthcare, oh no, not important. Like, what is all this junk? You know, I am just so negative. And here's this guy, Trudeau, 43 years old, knows nothing, never did anything, in my opinion. And the few times he's asked for his opinion on something, like I remember prior to the election, he was asked, which government in the world do you respect the most? And he says, China. And why? He's asked, and he says, because there, you know, they really can get things done. So, again, quoting Trudeau, for example, on the environment, if they have a problem, they can just fix it right away. I mean, how can anyone aspiring to be prime minister say something so stupid? There is no amount of explanation that takes away from the fact that anyone who says that is ignorant and stupid. Because in China, they can get things done, absolutely. If they want to build a road through your house is moved. Now, is that what you want for Canada? That's the kind of action-oriented government you want, that steamrolls over people? If somebody in the House of Commons isn't playing your silly little game, you just go over there and grab them by the elbow and push them around? And then to suggest that somehow in China they have this tremendous ability to fix their environment. If there's one thing, why are people flocking out of China, coming to Canada? Because China is becoming unlivable. So how good a job is their government doing on the environment? I mean, I can go on and on. Another one that annoys me is his focus on diversity all the time. He goes down to New York and says, there is no common culture in Canada. We're all about diversity, and diversity is strength. Well, as someone who was not born in Canada, whose wife is half Chinese, half Costa Rican, and who was not born in Canada, and I now have children and grandchildren, I think very much that there is a common culture in Canada. I see it all the time, how we interact with each other. I was at my CrossFit the other day, and there we have people of all kinds of origins, Chinese. This one fellow, Tariq, turns out he's originally from Afghanistan, but he speaks English like I do. And he feels the same way. There are ways in which Canadians interact with each other that is Canadian. It's part of our living culture. Yeah, we don't have the Great Wall of China. We don't have the Taj Mahal. We don't paint Easter eggs like the Ukrainians. But we have the way that we interact with each other. That's our culture. And to say that there's no common culture and that diversity is good, but that's not true. Diversity, to me, is irrelevant at best. If I look upon a person of Chinese or Indian or whatever, Afghan origin, and I don't see them as being diverse, but I see them as part of my community, that's good. And the more I see them as diverse and different, the worse. And there's no evidence in countries like Finland or Korea or Japan that lack of diversity hurts them in their education system, in their economy and stuff. So diversity at best is irrelevant. It's not something to crow about. And he's trying to portray this picture of Canada as some country full of hate, and he's going to come in and sort of soothe everyone's feelings. I've lived in many countries in the world. Canada today, not 30, 50, 80 years ago, today is one of the more tolerant countries that I know, and that's also part of our common culture. And we weren't that way before, vis-a-vis gays, vis-a-vis Chinese, blacks, you name it. There was lots of prejudice and discrimination, but and such it is in every country in the world. But today, in fact, Canada is relatively tolerant and accepting, and so constantly focusing on diversity rather than solidarity. You remember I did my video about equality, fraternity, which is solidarity, and what was the other one? And freedom. That's what we want. We want freedom from politically correct idiots like our Prime Minister, Pierre Trudeau. So there you have it. A little bit of a rant on Canadian politics. That should drive a few negatives from my Canadian followers. Bye for now.